You speak of justice, of cowardice. I will show you the justice of the grave and the true meaning of fear. A classic Lich King line to be sure, but he was really talking about unprepared damage dealers. If you don't know these 7 key things, you'll be not only having huge problems against the Lich King, but against every boss in Phase 4. The number 7 key thing DPS need to know for Phase 4 is that Icecrown Citadel has way more retail-style mechanics than previous raids. I'm no retail expert, but it's not a stretch to say that retail raids are more complex and more challenging than classic raids. Unlike some of the original classic bosses and even Wrath bosses, seemingly every boss in ICC has a mechanic you need to be on your toes to avoid. Just a few examples early in the raid include having to instantly switch to kill bone spikes in the Morrogar fight, or avoiding mechanics like the slime spray on Rotface or stacking up for the gas spore on Festergut. As a damage dealer, you'll have to focus much harder to stay off the floor. It really is a big adjustment. The number 6 key is that the tier gear really matters. Unlike in Trial of the Crusader, where the tier pieces are mostly numbers-oriented, in Icecrown we get drastic tier changes. For some classes like Shadow Priest, your entire rotation will change and become more efficient. You really need to make your BIS list right now and prioritize whether you need to get tier early. I'd hate to be a Ret Paladin that missed out on my 277 2-piece tier set early on. Also, barring some last-minute changes, we'll be getting the normal tier 10 gear purely from Emblems of Frost. Then 265 gear comes from taking the Emblem tier gear and combining it with a Mark of Sanctification from normal 25 or heroic 10. Because of this, you won't want to miss out on any 10-man lockouts for the first month. As for the 277 pieces, that'll come from the heroic 25s. To make that gear, you'll have to combine a heroic Mark of Sanctification with the original 264 gear. The number 5 key thing that DPS need to know is that you'll have way less time for ults. The current guild I'm in has 4 separate split runs for a main raid. That's 4 times more chances at 272 cloaks and regalias. But in Icecrown, there will likely only be 2 raid groups at most. While top speedrun guilds might clear the raid in 2 hours, for 90% of the population, this will be a 3 to 5 hour raid. Add in the mandatory 10 mans for every character and you have almost no time for all raids. So if you started doing split runs recently, I have some really bad news. One of your characters will likely be stuck in the garage, at least for the first month of ICC. At number 4, speaking of raid duration, it's important to note that the average fight lengths and even strategies will change drastically throughout the phase. The first week you won't even have any tier 10 gear, no Deathbringers will, no Shadowmourns. Kill times on bosses will sometimes be a minute or even 2 minutes longer than they are in those old boss videos from 2009 that your guild makes you watch. Your damage will be lower, your tanks will be squishier, and your healers will be weaker. Another key point is that the strength of Rin buff originally scaled up over the course of multiple months. Most of the videos you're watching feature DPS doing 30% more damage than you'll be doing at launch. So if your GM thinks you should stack up for Morrogar, you might have to tell him to wait a few weeks and revisit the strategy. The number 3 key for DPS is that trash farming is very important. A big part of Phase 4 is the new Ashen Verdict reputation system. At Friendly, you can get a 251 item level ring and a quest to upgrade it. By Exalted, you'll be looking at a shiny 277 item level ring and the ability to buy lucrative crafting recipes. While you're farming that 277 ring, you'll also have lots of chances at 264 items like the Woden's Lucky Necklace and the Stiffened Corpse shoulder pads. As a serious DPS player, you'll definitely want your guild to do Ashen rep farming the first week. As a serious DPS player, you'll also want to subscribe to the channel. We've got a whole community of smart 99 parsing players already subscribed, so what are you waiting for? The number 2 key for DPS in Phase 4 is the non-BIS gear. You might think that non-BIS gear from normal modes and 10 mans is a giant waste of time. You don't even want to consider getting a phylactery if it's 264 item level instead of 277. Or heaven forbid you get a 271 Havoc's Call or a 271 Glorinzelg. Except the reality is that this raid is harder than Ulduar, and it might even be harder than Sunwell Plateau as well. Your guild won't be killing the Lich King the first week or likely even the 8th week on heroic mode. I've already accepted the fact that some of my ults will be seeing lots of near-BIS trinkets and weapons, but not the real thing. To feel better about that, just remember that a 271 Lich King weapon still makes anything from Trial of the Crusader look like a joke by comparison. Also, don't forget that if you're not one of the lucky players to get Shadowmourn, there still is a really nice consolation prize. The initial quest where you get the 25 Primordial Serenite and do a short role-playing session rewards you with the Shadowmourn Shadow's Edge. This is a perfectly itemized 264 axe you can keep forever if you want to, and it's a really nice upgrade over TOC weapons. Alright, so the number one key that DPS players need to know is that the classes that are actually good change in Phase 4. We've all heard it throughout the expansion, but this is the time for physical damage dealers like Ret Paladins and Fury Warriors. This is also the time for Fire Mages and even Shadow Priests. If you've been playing a class that feels like it's going down in the meters every patch, this might be the perfect time for a change. One great resource to see how classes are projected to perform is this DPS sim sheet from Surveillant. With the sheet, you can see how sims are projecting each class to perform and make an educated choice on the hottest spec to switch to. Speaking of the hottest specs though, we also have the hottest items in Phase 4. Check out the 10 Ultra Biz items in Phase 4 you can't afford to miss out on.